What's up, y'all? You know what time it is. It's about to be that time.
Savage.
Welcome to Theory for Theory, a new series that I've started on the channel where each break week I'll go head-to-head with another One Piece YouTuber in the community. We'll talk about their theories, my theories, community theories, what have you. My guest today is Mr. Morj.
What's up, y'all? You know what time it is. It's about to be that time.
All right.
God, you got your sound effects.
Yeah, man. You know.
No, I love the sound effects. I love the WWE.
We're true to this, man. We're true to this, okay? So welcome to this week's edition of Theory for Theory. So I'm joined with Mr. Morj, which if you don't know who he is another YouTuber that talks about One Piece. He's known for thoughtful analysis, and he has become certainly a meme because of the raid will fail theory. Now I don't necessarily want to get too much into that because I feel like it's been beaten to death, even though, you know, I asked the community, what do you want us to talk about? And naturally everybody's like, we want to hear more of Mr. Morj talk about the raid is going to fail.
I saw the initial replies to that, and I was just like, "What? Come on, guys! Like some creativity here. Like, is this just what's going to be spammed throughout the entire chat?" But you know, it makes sense. It makes sense.
Yeah, it's.
I can't pretend that there's like no reason that they would be asking about that, but I mean, I'd be happy to talk about that a little bit, but like, there's only so many more places that we can go with it, you know.
Exactly, and I don't want to spend too much. I don't want to spend too much time on it, if anything. But the main key factor would be, really getting into the structure elements of it, because, I think that's something that you and I that's a little different than what other people in the community do. Is we have studied structure, we've studied writing, we've studied story. So it's when it comes from a place like that, we're looking at it from a different lens. Now, while I don't necessarily,
one thing I don't want to cut you off, but one thing I had come into your stream one time, right? And I don't know, maybe it was like 5-6 months ago or something like that. And I was joking. I was like, "What do you think of the raid failure or whatever?" And you said something like, "The raid should fail, but it won't." Yes. And to me, I was like, okay, I get that perspective. Do you still think that, or have you changed kind of your perspective on it that like, no, this is now a clean structure? And I'm not trying to challenge that necessarily, but I'm just interested to hear,
No, I mean, I still feel the same way. I think that there needs to be and will be something devastating at the end of this arc that will carry us into the next one. But I think that the actual raid against Kaido specifically will work. I believe that Luffy will defeat Kaido, but there is a chance that they still lose Wano to the world government now that they're here to annex Wano. So
yeah, I get that idea, and that like you're looking at it in a like, okay, so if it's a broader perspective, right? So like this is a continuing sort of storyline, and then this would be sort of a midpoint in a sense, right? Like the win the battle but lose the war in that sort of sense. Is that what you're saying?
So yeah, this whole idea of losing the battle, winning the war, but I mean I think it's actually winning the battle, losing the war, since
you know what I mean?
Yeah. Like since the government is here, and
yeah, I guess like to me that's like a bigger flip in my mind than the raid failing, just because I personally feel like the way that Oda likes to write usually wants those sort of big wins to feel like big wins. You know what I mean? Like when you take down Crocodile or whatever, you take down CP9 or NL, etc. Like I really do feel like Oda really looks forward to setting up like a really cathartic feeling and really like let things smooth out, have that big victory and everything like that. So I'm not saying that doesn't like that's not a possibility, and obviously it could be a possibility, but like to me that's like more, in my mind, that's more of a diversion than the raid itself failing, because in my mind it's more similar to Oda's storytelling. If they lose, then have to get back up, get that big win, free Wano, claim that territory, and then move on to the world government, as opposed to get the win, but the win is kind of squashed immediately by the world government's hand, and then it's rolling into that conflict. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I just think, and I mean, it's my own headcanon, but I mean, I'm only going from the way that Oda has done things. I'm going from the way that obviously Oda is trying to end the story by a certain, time frame, even though that time frame has been 5 years for the past 15 years. So, but, I mean,
you've been around a while, so you've seen that for a while.
Oh yeah, I've been weekly since Skypiea, my man. Like, it's a lot. Real quickly, let me run through a couple of these super chats. We got the Hidden Island, who's a new up and coming One Piece YouTuber in here. He has a lot of good theories. He said was hyped for this stream like you wouldn't believe. Cheers! So excited for that. Nora said, Randy, your channel is amazing. I look forward to all your videos. It's my birthday today. Happy birthday. And I'm so happy to hear this discussion today. Thank you. All right, that's great. Old Green Knees said, also follow up. Maybe they did a super chat prior to that. Do you imagine the final crew member composition, what do you imagine the final crew member composition to be? And why do you disagree with the other person's answer? All right. So this actually brings up an interesting discussion, because I know that you have the...
Whoa. This guy, Ben DeGuara, said Randy greater than Morj. No need to read this one out. I'm reading it out. I see you. Sorry, continue.
Shout out to Ben, member for 7 months.
No, don't shout him out.
I'm thanking him for being a member. He said no need to read this out. I don't have to read it out. It was...
Fair.
Jimmy Striker said, my two favorite YouTubers. Thank you both. That's funny. We don't... Let's not... we don't need to play Pac-Man here. You have a theory that you've had for a long time, that you think that the final crew composition is going to involve Smoker.
That's like my secret favorite theory. Raid failing is the biggest theory, I guess, but Smoker is my secret favorite theory, because I guess it's the one that's like, I think that's by far the most not a whatever. I don't even know what controversial or what you would say, but basically like, I think I've got like with the raid fail, there's successfully like a certain number of people who do still believe it, right? Rightfully so, in my opinion. But Smoker is something that I think nobody's on board with, and I personally think that it makes a lot of sense. I'd be happy to talk about that. I think you've got...
By all means. I've got what?
You've got, I think, if I recall, because we probably talked about that, I think you got Tama and Momo joining, right? Which I actually agree with Momo. I'm not so certain about Tama personally. And
Vivi coming back. That's my secret favorite theory, is that Vivi comes back to the like, obviously, it's my raid is going to fail is that Lord's Laws and Sword. And
Laws and Sword, I think that's not that crazy though. Like, I think Laws and Sword that fits with like a lot of things we've seen, like that one.
Well, not only that, I mean, there's a lot of thematic elements to Law being in Sword that I think, it's like, it's just simple things like going back to the fight with Virgo. Like, if he ends up being a secret Marine or even affiliated with Sword, then you have two people that have, it's like a secret pirate that is actually a Marine versus a secret Marine that's actually a pirate. So there's like, there's cool stuff like that can happen. And, but even within the Laws and Sword theory, my favorite part of that is just that Garp's at the head of it, because then it just makes Garp a more interesting character. But I want to focus on the Smoker thing. We can get back to Sword later, or it can naturally come through as we talk about Smoker probably as well.
It's similar a little bit. I guess it helps if I go big first and then like narrow down, I guess. Like you mentioned, like pirate who's a Marine who's a pirate, right? to me, I think like one of the biggest ideas in One Piece, right, that Oda likes pushing a lot, right? Like the idea, especially starting with Marineford, was the idea of concepts of who's a pirate, who's a marine, who's good, who's evil, right? Those are things that shift just based on who currently has power and who can proclaim themselves to be.
And
good,
even
right?
even you know, you go back to Long Ring Long Land, right? And they first meet Aokiji, and one of the first things that, you know, it's like a joke, but Luffy sits there and he's like,
Yeah.
wait, I'm a pirate, right? So I'm the bad guy here.
You
So-
should go with yeah, I remember that scene. But yeah, like that's one of the biggest things. And then one of the biggest things that comes with that is that the labels, right? The labels keep swapping. And like there's so many things that Oda pushes throughout the series of like the label of pirate and marine that, like, you know, Tom talking about, you throw a pirate flag on a ship, it's a pirate flag. You throw a marine flag on a ship, it's a marine flag. Like the labels are just they don't actually mean anything, right? So like what's under the surface matters more. Who's actually good or bad, or who's actually doing right or wrong, or who's actually bringing justice or injustice. That's something that's totally separate from the labels. And I think that's something really big that, I mean, we both agree, right? Like that everybody. That's something really, really big that Oda pushes throughout the series.
He loves muddying the waters.
Yes. And in my opinion, the more that I looked at Smoker's character, the more it seemed, and looking at the progression of his arc, the more it seems to me that, you know, to take that theme, right, and really, really illustrate it in the story, to make it not just something like, you know, a nice idea to say that, hey, the labels don't matter. I think Smoker was created as a character to actually represent, be the illustration of that theme. Because that's what his entire arc has been, I think, from start to finish, right? Like, about him is that I hate pirates. I will never trust a pirate, right? That's like his defining character. But the more we learn about him, it's like, what's his actual defining character? His actual defining like motivation is justice. He wants to be able to bring about justice wherever he goes, right? So it's not so much that Smoker is like, I think it's a mischaracterization to say, you know, Smoker is like a really, really like marine through and through. What he really is like, he's a person who seeks justice through and through, right? And he will go against authority, whatever his superiors, etc., are telling him for the sake of like what he perceives to be actual justice. And Smoker's arc throughout the series has been pushing him closer and closer to the realization that what he had wrong, I guess from the start, is this notion that Marines are the ones who bring justice and pirates inherently are the ones who stand against justice. And he's realizing, like, his arc so far has been realizing that same theme, that the labels don't actually matter. And by the time, and like what he sees over and over is that the Straw Hats are the ones who actually bring justice, right? It's often the Marines who are incapable of doing it, and often the Marines who are in the wrong. So then as he gets closer and closer towards like the New World, etc., I guess particularly Punk Hazard, you get some really like damning imagery and moments throughout Punk Hazard. You literally have like, one, it's an arc again where Smoker is working with pirates, right? Again, he's having the realization that like Luffy's able to do something here that the Marines weren't. He sees that again after Doflamingo. But literally you have like lines being drawn in the sand, right? Or in the snow, whatever you want to say, of like, this is the pirate side, this is the Marine side. You remember when they're, you know, the ending bit of the arc, they're about to have Sanji's cooking and everything like that. And the Marines are literally drawing a line. And then what happens after that is that the line gets like literally crossed and X'd out basically. And they're sitting side by side, they're joining, they're crossing over sides, etc. And then after that, the conversation with Aokiji about how there are many things you learn once you leave the Marines, right? Then again, Smoker reading in the paper about Doflamingo, realizing again that Luffy was able to do that stuff, right? And so much of
Which
Smoker's
that
dialogue,
Aokiji conversation is one of my favorite points about Aokiji being in Sword.
Yeah, I mean, Aokiji very... I like the idea, I like side tangent, I guess, with Aokiji being in Sword. I like the idea that Aokiji is having to... I don't know, I personally, like, this is a personal preference, right? I like the idea that he's wandering and trying to find his own way and he's landed on something else. But obviously, if he's still part of the Marines, that would be interesting. I guess it's just more so, I personally like the idea that Aokiji has truly left the Marines, basically, and he's on a different path. Not in, like, a moral path or something, but he's had some realization. But, yeah,
Well,
point being,
too.
like, I think, you know, so much of Punk Hazard was built around basically challenging Smoker's ideas of, like, these ideas you have of like what a pirate is, what a Marine is, those aren't real, right? Even him realizing that this Marine that he's been working like for so long, Virgo, was actually a pirate, things like that. I think that the direction of Smoker's character is ultimately headed towards like, you know, bit by bit realizing, you know, my ideas are wrong. The labels don't actually matter. Who's actually bringing justice here? It's consistently this group. I think that there just finally needs to be a trigger, a final trigger that makes him, one, leave the Marines, and then one more trigger, one more arc with the crew that makes him realize that he should be sailing with the crew. So it's not that far off. He's already pretty not happy with the Marines. They're ready for a great cleansing. I think a lot of things are heading towards him leaving the Marines. That's been set up since Punk Hazard, in my opinion. You just need one more arc with the Straw Hats for him to realize that that's where he should be if he really wants to bring justice in the world. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. And the thing is that I actually, I like the concept of the theory. My only issue with it is Smoker's pride in calling himself a pirate. Like, I could totally... I could arc,
man.
Yeah, well, if we actually get that arc, then that would be amazing. But as Smoker stands right now, I totally see him riding with the Straw Hats into the final war, but not necessarily as a member of the crew, but as sort of like an ally, a law, a Kinemon, someone that's affiliated, but just not an official, like I could see him totally looking at Luffy and saying, I'm going to work with you, but I'm not a pirate.
That's the thing. Like, to me, if Oda really wants to show that these labels don't matter, then the character that's written from the start is caring the most about that I'm a Marine, you're a pirate. That's the guy that ultimately has to realize that that's not important. If I'm going to do this as a pirate, I'll do it as a pirate, but what brings justice is what's important. So maybe it's a bit of bias there, but I think the message hits infinitely harder than just being, because then he's kind of like towing the line. He's not actually taking himself over. For him to actually realize this doesn't matter. Marine, pirate, those are things that are made up. You get what I'm saying?
Sure.
I think I'm...
Yeah, no, I mean, if we go down that path, and that's great. I also love it from the standpoint of, if it were to work, it would be such great foreshadowing with it just being, so prevalent in East Blue. And it also... I'm going to be putting a video out where I kind of go into the early themes of villains and actually like through most of them, and how every person that Luffy has fought in one way or another is a failure. They're like a failed pirate to sort of hype up Luffy as this, this unstoppable force towards his ambition, towards his dreams. Like the first pirate that he fights is Alvida, who literally stops being a captain to become a subordinate for the next pirate that Luffy meets in the same arc when he's trying to find his second in command. Buggy, he's not vying for anything major in the world. He's sailing the weakest sea, even though he was part of the greatest pirate crew that ever lived. Kuro literally gives up piracy to just go after an inheritance. It's like there's all of these really big idealistic blocks. Krieg goes to the Grand Line, gets bounced back by Mihawk, and we see this example of someone that tried and failed, and then also wanted to cheat his way to the One Piece by using Zeph's logbook. Then we meet Arlong, who's just kind of hanging out. He did the New World, he did the Grand Line, he got beaten by Kizaru, and then went back and decided, I'm going to retire on this island. And it's all these different ideas of that. But when you get to Smoker, who's technically the final villain of the East Blue, he is not a failure. And he completely subverts that. And that is because Oda has always written Smoker with the intention of turning him into an ally. Now, to the extent that you're saying, I don't know if I'm 100% there yet. But if it happened, I'd be okay with it.
For me, I can and people are finding it funny in the chat as well, but to me, that's kind of it, the absurdity of it, right? That we feel that Smoker, hardcore Marine, not going to be a pirate, right? To me, that's the power of the what that would say as a character arc. That's the power behind it, because it does break that barrier. He's the best character to sort of break that barrier and send that message. And the other aspect, over time, it was just funny that so many things that people started to believe us, but like Smoker's Luffy's rival. We kind of checked that, like crossed that off. Most people don't think that anymore.
I've always kind of felt that it's technically supposed to be Kobe.
Yeah, I like Kobe. It's tricky because it's like,
but they're all going to be working together in the final war in my headcanon anyway.
Yeah, if you want someone Luffy's going to be squaring off against, you got a pretty good fleet admiral over there who's, I don't think you need any more personal motivation or anything like that for Luffy on that end. But like Kobe is like a more friendly rival, right? And like even people were saying like, well, you need Smoker to show that there's good guys in the Marines, but we've had so many other good characters in the Marines. Like hell, the first Marines that we met that worked under Axan Morgan that weren't Axan Morgan, I don't know their names or anything like that. They were good guys. You have Garp, you have Kobe, you have I don't think Smoker is necessary for the places that people put him in at this point. So,
Yeah, and it's like, but I like the way that you're going about it. I like the thinking that you're putting behind Smoker because you're giving the character a beginning, middle, and end arc. You're giving him this sort of start. An area where he's misguided, an area where he's found, which is what, a lot of characters, go through. It's why I love Bellamy so much, because Bellamy is going on this arc, and I feel like he's going to have that third act where he's found, where Oda brings all of that full circle. He brings all of that full circle, and we see this moment where, like, he was misguided with Doflamingo, but he's ready to put his life on the line for Luffy in the final war. Like, that's the kind of stuff that really works. It's why I say Laws and Sword, because it's like, what else is he going to do? He doesn't necessarily want the One Piece. So what is his motivation to continue in the story? Whereas if he's trying to take down the world government from within a secret organization that is opposing the world government, led by a member of the monkey family, which also you have Dragon, who's doing the exact same thing. Then you have 3 members of the monkey family going into the final war with different factions, all after the same goal. Like, that's just where I see the story going. Unite the world, free the world. Luffy is freedom, and it's like that's where I think we can take all of this.
Applying that to, let's say, Yamato, right? What do you think about Yamato? Like, because right now she's in, as far as I can tell, right? She's in she's at square one for character, right? So that's why when so many people push for her, do you think she's joining the crew? Because so many people push for her joining the crew. To me, it's like, 1, she's nowhere near there yet. And 2, that's one of the reasons, again, I don't want to spill into this too much, but that's one of the reasons I feel like we're set up for a longer Wano arc than is expected, just because she seems like a key piece to this, and it seems like, to me, like, the arc that she's going to experience will be, like, following a sort of flow to, like, there being more of the Wano arc in general,
So with Yamato, to begin with, it's interesting getting a character that is given so much relevance at the, with what seems, this late into the story. And shout out to Viswa for becoming a member. Thanks. I gotta get another one's going. But anyway, the thing with Yamato is that they also have to go on this sort of arc where, and I think that Momonosuke being aged up, even though I wasn't necessarily the biggest fan of it happening, is going to be the catalyst for Yamato to become their own person. Because if Momonosuke actually resembles and looks like Odin, then I think that Yamato will feel comfortable not having to be Odin anymore and can kind of become Yamato. And I think if that's the case, then things will kind of settle in more. I see the world government ships have to play a role here. Like, there's no reason for them to be here if they're just going to get swiped away by Zunisha Jack style. Like, they are here for a reason. They should be getting onto Wano for the larger narrative of, like, taking control of these factories to, handle the weapons. So if they can successfully annex Wano, if CP0 ends up being that much of a threat, if whoever is on those ships, Vegapunk, Green Bull, whatever, ends up being that big of a threat, that Kuma at the end of Thriller Bark, then we can get something where everybody has to get out of Wano very quickly, and then they lose Wano, but they have to go and fight the world government to get it back. That gives Momonosuke a reason to join, because he wants to be the Shogun of Wano, and if there is something that stops him from being able to become the Shogun of Wano, like the world government taking over Wano, then he comes along. If that happens, then Yamato, as his aide, makes sense. Tama, as an apprentice, makes sense to me. Vivi coming back after all of this stuff with the Reverie makes sense to me. There's a lot of people on the ship, but there's going to be a lot of people at the final war, too.
Yeah, I mean, this is just a taste of it.
Now, the only thing is, I don't know. There's certain levels that I think need to be hit to become a member of the crew, first and foremost. And I think that's meaningful interactions with other crew members. So, and I think one of the key components of this also is meaningful interactions with not only Luffy, but especially Zoro. I think if you're going to come onto this, if you're going to join the crew, you need a relationship with Zoro. And that's one of the things that really bothers me about Carrot. Like, not that Carrot is a bad character, but she has literally never had a meaningful interaction with Zoro other than her introduction fighting Zoro. Carrot has not, and I don't want to, bash Carrot too much, but I mean, if we're talking about, Straw Hats, I don't know if Carrot goes onto the ship because she has made no effort to have a bond with over half of the crew. We're always only seeing her with the Whole Cake Island group. So now with Yamato, Yamato needs to have their own interactions with the crew, and that's why Tama works even more than Yamato and Carrot, because Tama at least has been around almost the entirety of the crew. So had a meaningful interaction with Zoro. Momo's had meaningful interactions with Zoro. I mean, he feels like a member of the crew anyway because he's been riding with them for over a decade. Yeah. So that's where now that it depends on if this Kazembo stuff is done, which I'm kind of iffy about as well, because I don't know what the story purpose of Kazembo was, if Kazembo is just done and dissipated after this, bomb goes off. I'm wondering if the soul focus that Big Mom did, kind of is sending a little flame of Kazembo to go and find Orochi and then maybe play a role there. I don't know.
That's an interesting idea.
But me personally, I've thought that Marco would be the one to go up against Kazembo, fly into the fire and then rise from the ashes like a phoenix. But if this Kazembo stuff is done and Yamato doesn't have to worry about the bombs anymore, then they can go off and meet up with Robin and Brooke, have an interaction with them that is meaningful. And if we see Yamato with more members of the crew, I'll feel more comfortable with Yamato joining the crew. So that's kind of how I feel with it.
I guess if I don't agree with Yamato joining the crew in general, but if I had to throw Yamato a bone, I'd say that there is some potential, because you mentioned Zoro. I think there's some really interesting potential with Yamato and Zoro, just because the samurai that she, her backstory is, it's with samurai, that one of which seems suspiciously similar to Zoro, right? I think there's no questions about some level of connection there, whatever you want to think, related, right. Whatever, something's there. But even just the samurai philosophy being passed down to her, there's something there that could easily make for a good connection with Zoro, right? So, I don't like the idea of Yamato joining, and I would agree that she's severely lacking in interactions, but I like the idea that there's something potentially there between her and Zoro. Now, with her lacking in interactions, I guess for me that's symptomatic of the bigger issue, which is just that I've always felt like Yamato's kind of a character that's she's jumping the gun in a way that makes me feel that this is she's clearly headed in the wrong direction. Her line of thing, she's jumping the gun in the sense that I'm going to be joining your crew and I'm going to be going on with you on this adventure and I'm going to be Odin, basically, etc., etc. These are her first thoughts upon meeting Luffy. You're going to beat Kaido, I'm going to join your crew, we're going to be sailing together on a ship, etc. We're going to go have this adventure and get to Rafto, right?
Which, to Yamato's credit, no one has ever done that has joined the crew. So it would be something new, and that's obviously something that I look for when I'm trying to figure out, okay, is this scenario different? You know, like when they met Brooke, that was a completely new scenario that we had never seen, and that's what made it interesting.
I guess to me, like, it's kind of like, for the first, Brooke's tricky because Brooke's a bit of an exception, but he's a character that didn't really need an arc, you know, initially with Thriller Bark. Like, he didn't really need to change or develop in some way, right? Versus with most of the Straw Hats, they're always anti-joining the crew, right? Like, they don't want, Zoro didn't want to join initially. Zoro was like, can I curse? I won't curse just in case it's monetized. It was like, piss off, Nami, I'll never work with pirates. Usopp was scared. Sanji didn't want to join. Like, across the board, Chopper was like, I can't join. Robin, she joined, but she fully intended from the start, like, I'm not actually going to be one of you guys. You guys will discard. Like, so across the board, to me, like, with each Straw Hat character, like, I expect more so.
Yamato's making it too easy.
Right? Yeah, exactly. So with Yamato, it's so drastically different, and you're right. Maybe it's a totally new scenario that, like, she had it right from the start. She goes through an arc, learns some stuff, but still comes back to the same conclusion of joining the crew and everything like that. But to me, the fact that she's starting at this place where most Straw Hats end up indicates to me that, like, it's the reverse, right? So she would not be heading in that direction. But, you know, I don't know. You never know. Maybe Oda might be switching it up with this.
John Ross said, I like the theory that the Vinsmokes were once a kind royal family, turned cold after being conquered, works with Sanji reclaiming the family name. Well, I like the... Yeah, I've always liked the idea that there's a reason that Judge felt he needed to remove emotion from his kids. Like, I think if we ever get a flashback with Judge, it would be interesting to see what event his emotions played in that ruined some XYZ for him. Like that's the line of thinking that has to come through that. Something, his emotion, he was too emotional in a particular situation, and those emotions ruined something for him. And maybe we'll get that whenever we get an eventual Vegapunk, backstory or something with Mads.
I really like the recent, like, it's like, I forget which chapter, 1032 maybe, whatever chapter Sanji had is like the fact that the Whole Cake Island stuff was not closed out yet, because I had a sense for a long time that, like, okay, closed out, he resolved that conflict with his family, basically. He's got the raid suit now and everything like that. I like the fact that it's still, that stuff is still carrying over, and Oda still has more to work with that. And, our cover story right now is Germa. So, like, I would love to be able to see, like, I really like the idea that, okay, there's something to continue off of there, and maybe Sanji has future things to resolve with his family, or more realizations to have, maybe like a different outcome with his father than what we got from Whole Cake.
Yeah, and that's and that's interesting too. Shout out to the 700 plus people in here. Thanks for being here, guys.
Nice.
And see, one of the things that I know has been kind of disappointing for people is that we're introduced to the idea of Lunarians, we're introduced to the concept of Mads, by Queen and King, but then we don't necessarily, but it's just another tease from Oda. More questions than answers as usual. And I think that this is all just a reason to have all of this information come from a info dump from Vegapunk, because he's tied to both. Like, obviously the Lunarian DNA, that they were working on, and Punk Hazard in the little flashback with King and Arbor, was, those experiments had to have been done by Vegapunk because it was on Punk Hazard, and we know that Queen worked with Vegapunk. So I think once Vegapunk comes into the story, and he's obviously tied to three major characters, three major main characters, which is Sanji by way of Judge, Frankie by way of 3D2Y, and also Momonosuke by way of the Fruit. So when Vegapunk does come into the story, he has to have an interaction with specifically those three characters more than anything. And Wano's pretty bloated, but I still feel like there's going to be some sort of...
Vegapunk's coming? I think Vegapunk's...
I think Vegapunk coming is very likely, because, we had the Orochi scene at the beginning of Act 2 talking to CP0 the next time, you better bring Vegapunk. And if Vegapunk, was told that or something, and if he's a little more bold than we expect, and this dude just shows up and says, hey, heard you guys wanted me here. I'm here. And I think that there's a lot of different elements that, we don't know much about Vegapunk. Is he good? Is he bad? There's elements in the story that sort of just really paint him as neutral. Like, he's probably a guy that is doing things for the government only because they let him have access to all of the toys that he wants to play with. So it's like, yeah, I get to build this thing, so I'll build this weapon for you. So we were also introduced to the SSG, by concept, by name. So it makes sense that the SSG come to Wano and that they're on the government ships. Because if we go back to 985, Kaido, while he's like talking about the new Onigashima initiative, he's calling out the SSG. They have this group that they believe can handle us, right? This is why they're dismantling the warlord system. So there's a lot of setup for Vegapunk to come by, and a lot of opportunities for, I've been waiting. Obviously, Oda inverts a lot of things in the story. And, we've had, what if Alabasta, what if Crocodile won in Alabasta, and that's Dressrosa, and et cetera, et cetera. We've got elements of various different arcs all playing here. Thriller Bark, Alabasta and Wano, Marine Ford, Eni's Lobby, especially.
Yeah, it's funny because lots of people, like, they try to do it to 1-to-1, like, oh, this New World arc is the equivalent of this
Only.
3-time skip arc, right?
Only.
And
no, it's
all
all of
like
these
that.
ideas are coming together and being flipped. So I'm waiting for the inversion of nothing happened.
Dude, and it feels like it should happen in Wano, right?
I would love if it was Sanji and Vegapunk.
Oh, okay. I forget that you're Sanji guy.
Well, we don't need an inversion of Zoro's nothing happened. I mean, we could be getting that with the Grim Reaper here, especially if, like, when Kuma said, "I'm going to send you to hell" in Thriller Bark, he meant it literally, and actually Zoro already had an interaction with the Grim Reaper. But Sanji playing a role in Nothing Happened, having him take center stage in a second sort of Nothing Happened, where now he is the one that's up against whatever this, like, threat that's come, Vegapunk, who ends up maybe similar to Kuma or different, ends up actually being, in a way, an aid. There's different ways that some of this stuff can go.
It's juicy. I mean, like, the first time we really got details on Vegapunk, I guess, were literally the Nothing Happened moment. So it fits pretty well, right? Kuma explaining, I'm a cyborg, worked on by Vegapunk, etc.
I mean, that's what we got, like, some specific details. We did hear about him from Kobe, though, in the post Eni's Lobby arc.
And sorry, I'm laughing at Super. Love this Morj who is not getting salty even though he is completely wrong. Well, God damn it. Stuff like that's gonna make me salty, but we'll leave that alone. No, but I think that would be great. I'm 100% on board with Vegapunk coming to Wano. Like, I would love to see that, and it feels like it just makes so much sense. Again, makes me feel like so many small lingering things make me feel that, like, we're not fully through Wano yet, and that there's a good deal left to go. So to me, I guess it's just too big of a jump for people to say, well, there'll be a loss here and then we'll get a whole second half. But to me, so many things point towards that making sense. It's just a lot of things. But I'm yelling at clouds at this point.
Oh, man. Yeah, I mean, personally, like, the thing that makes the most sense to me, the thing that I actually want the most, more than anything, is the Revolutionary Army showing up. Because they are the ones that have, like, they have the earliest ties to Wano. I mean, like, Dressrosa, the whole arc of the Revolutionary Army there was to basically tell us that they should be going to Wano, because that's where the weapons are being manufactured, that's where the drunken iron ore is. So, and then that also makes me wonder if these act breaks that Oda has been doing and, like, structuring the story this way is a way to hide the fact that some of these factions are already in Wano. And that if the act ends, then we kind of come in and we see, like, Koala and Dragon destroying a factory on Wano, and then seeing Onigashima, and it's like, what's going on here? You know, and then they've been there for a while. We get a little bit of a time jump where, you know, maybe we see that they arrived, but there's so much in the story that just puts them there. The fact that they're up, that they want to go up against the Celestial Dragons, CP0, all of that is here. And then we have this theme of, you know, fathers that is so prevalent in this. And, you know, my wife brings that up all the time about that theme. And it's just, you know, we have Kaido and Yamato, we have Odin and Momonosuke, Hiyori, you know, whatever's going on with Zoro, and it just feels like this would be the arc for Dragon to show up and have a meeting with Luffy with all of this.
All right. I agree. I think that we're on the same page, which is that the raid is a fail and we're going to have a second half to Wano. we're both on board with that. No, but I mean, yeah, like at the end of the day, all of those things, like the reality, as people remind me, is that like all of those things have to be balanced against the possibility that Oda has ideas and cuts those ideas, or like things get changed for time and maybe certain things were planned but then aren't going to be. So, you know, maybe it all does just wrap up in the next 15 chapters and then we're moving on. Or, you know, as you think, like there's government comes down and this all just plays into the next big conflict, so a lot of those ideas can still come out in that way. But I guess, you know, we're just at a stage of the arc, I feel like, where it's like, you know, we just have to watch and find out, you know, just watch and find out, because it's like all of the pieces of evidence for things have mostly been accumulated throughout the arc. Now it's just like, what comes of it? Like, where does it end up going?
Yeah, and I mean, now with Film Red also, you know, if they are supposed to have anything with Shanks in that, it almost implies that Shanks needs to come to Wano. And that this is the, you know, it's like, I wasn't, yeah, exactly. No, but I mean, yeah. but I mean, seriously, like I was totally against Shanks coming to Wano until all of this Film Red stuff. And it's like, well, you can't have a movie physically where Luffy and Shanks meet in a movie unless they meet in the story, in the canon. So it's like, what is Oda doing?
The Film Red movie, how would you feel? Well, I don't know. I think I would personally hate it if Luffy and Shanks met in that movie.
They won't.
Before,
they won't.
Like, it's not going to happen.
They
right?
won't. Oda will never let that happen. If Shanks does not pull up to Wano before this movie comes out, then Shanks will be in the movie, but it'll be like a concurrent storyline, but not a parallel storyline, but not something that Luffy actually like notices. And I honestly would probably be even just a little upset if they put like the slightest thing where Luffy looks up and then like on a hilltop somewhere, like Shanks is there and then like walks away, like, you know, like
don't even look at me.
You're just not gonna be in the same place. It's just Wano can go in so many directions and it's wild. Get into some more chats here. Layman said, "I've always hated Law and Sword." Okay. Because I don't think he'd ever forgive the world government for Flevance and become a Marine. Well, if you watch the video, I go into exactly why that like is a plot point. Seems like one thing he'd never do, similar to Fisher Tiger not accepting human blood. So yes, I truly believe that Law wants to take down the world government and get revenge for Flevance. And that's part of everything that just makes my interpretation of Sword what it is that here you have Garp, who has been he has been shown and told that he hates the Celestial Dragons. Something happened at God Valley, something happened in his past, someone may have been killed by a Celestial Dragon in his past. He does not want anything to do with them. So if we have an organization within the Marines that knows that CP0 is funneling guns, funneling weapons for the world government, and that they want to stop this 800-year tyranny, then you have this organization, right? So Law being a member of Sword means that he is part of an organization, in my headcanon, right, that wants to take down the world government. So he's just playing the long game. He's sneaky, he's a planner, right? And that's all it is. Crippling something from the inside. Saying, I hate this, but I'm going to put on this hat and just pretend to be this until I have the opportunity to actually hit that button that blows you up. So, I don't know what you think about that, man.
No, I like it. I think it conflicts a little bit with I guess I have the generic assumption, which is just, I think Law does die over the course of the story. I think he does.
He's so many death flags. It's just when he's going to die. That's
okay. So you believe that these events still play out, and then Law, kicks the bucket or whatever. Okay,
but it could totally happen in Final War. It's just. But the thing is
that. Okay. I'm gonna go. I like that idea because it gives Law so much of his story theoretically closed after Doflamingo, because he makes it so clear over and over, like, look, man, I didn't even know, I'm ready to die here. I'm ready to die taking down Doflamingo. I didn't really, beyond this, nothing, man. I want to take down Doflamingo, right? But then after that, he becomes this sort of floating figure where it's not as though he's written to be that focused on One Piece or Pirate King. But at the same time, he's clearly still relevant in the story. So this gives him, I like that theory because it gives him, a role that makes sense and actually, fits with the grander scheme of things outside of just, Supernova is trying to become Pirate King and everything like that. And it fits his character really well.
Yeah.
So I like that idea.
All I'm trying to create is a reason for Law to stay relevant in the story. Because he doesn't seem like he wants the One Piece. Yes, he wants to learn the true history now that we've learned that. But it's like...
The true history... To me, I'll just say this real quick. To me, that does feel like a thing for Oda to, at least on the surface, give him okay, here's a goose for Law to chase, basically, at the moment. But it doesn't feel like it justifies Law's, role in the story.
It's not strong enough, which is why if he was part of a secret organization trying to take down the world government, and then you have Luffy, who will be given multiple reasons to take down the world government, then they can continue their alliance. Then that's what gets us there. And it's like, there's so many things that can happen here. I mean, I truly believe that Hancock is going to get captured and returned to being the property of the Celestial Dragons. Otherwise, there was no point to say that she was ever a slave, right? So the second that Luffy finds out that Hancock is, enslaved, that, among other things, if Sabo's actually captured, which I don't believe, if Vivi's actually captured, which I think it's more that Sabo and Vivi, escaped. Or Vivi's with or Vivi is with Sai and Leo, because they all have Viva cards to Luffy. But either way, there's going to be a reason for Luffy to go after the world government.
Yeah, it's tricky because the way Oda phrased, we're talking about that same quote, right? The Sabo, Vivi, Hancock. Yeah. the whatever Oda said. To me, it sounds like those three, Oda setting up basically three damsels in distress to kind of give Luffy that motivation. I don't know if Hancock alone works, but at the same time, I get, Hancock doesn't have a clear thing to do in the story otherwise, whereas Sabo and Vivi, I mean, you believe Vivi joining the crew again, that's a very strong possibility. I get it. I don't know if Hancock alone provide, it's weird because it's not like Luffy would be oh, I'm not going to go save Hancock or something like that. But at the same time, it's to really, really make it a very powerful driving motivation, I suppose, having that stacked up of Sabo, Vivi, and Hancock, three figures. So something bigger than Ace in that sense.
Right.
Versus the reality is Hancock would be a smaller incentive than Ace, which is not to say anything about Luffy and Hancock, but you know what I mean?
No, and I totally agree with you there in that it's very well within Oda's wheelhouse to give us a situation where Luffy has to now save his other brother, invert that, but this time he actually does, right? And then we get this catharsis of, well, he didn't get Ace, but now he gets Sabo. And if
I think that's why he brought Sabo back, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think that that's very possible as well. And I mean, and if it lines up with my theory that, we potentially go to Sphinx Island after Wano, so that Luffy has a moment with Ace's grave, since Ace has been so prevalent in Wano. It's a way for them to recoup, a way to get Marco back there, a way to maybe have some sort of interaction with Weevil, and just understand what his role in the story is, because he's going to show up and try and take down Marco, and everybody can be hurt and have this sort of interesting thing there. But Luffy could have this moment with Ace's grave where, like, hey, I just found out Sabo's captured. I'm not going to let what happened to him happen to you happen to him. And then we move on from there, and like we just sort of like get all these like One Piece feels and move on into the final war. But also, you know, it's enough motivation if world government annexes Wano, because then Luffy's goal to, you know, help out Momonosuke isn't done, and he's got to go over there to stop them so that Momo can like live in peace, and Tama can live in peace, and all of these other people that he's, you know, become friends with now.
Yeah, like at a certain point, it's going to be probably a mixture of basically the personal plus the broader ramifications. I guess it'll be a time, like how Oda ties together, because it's very difficult. Like getting Luffy to do something for a prophecy or whatever, or like he's supposed to do it through like reading a poneglyph, that's just never going to happen. Right. So the way Oda ties together all of the, like, it's got to be many driving factors for Luffy to be like, we're going to war, and we're doing it for like the personal motivation is built on many different facets. So there's so many pieces that Oda's putting together that makes it seem like it's gonna be really strong when we get to that point.
Right, because Luffy has to take out Fishman Island, right? So, you know, like what's going to get him there? Potentially Big Mom learning about Poseidon and then going after Shirahoshi. You know, like that's a way to do it.
Just a heads up, I think I can do. Should have cut it a little bit ago, but I'm having so much fun, honestly, that I think I can do 10 more minutes if that's good. Also, guys, like the stream. If we don't get to 400 likes, we'll never collab together again. There any? Sorry, I saw somebody say that in chat, and I was like, that's a good incentive. Yeah, if we don't get to 400, we'll never do a collab again. Do we want to? Are there any other questions that you want to hit, or chats that you want to hit, or something like that?
Let's see. We got a super chat from Vapor Babe here that said, the best OP YouTubers. Thank you. In the end of the Wano arc, not only the country's borders will shatter, but the borders of the next story lines, the next arc storylines too, act intermissions are pointing to this. Well, the whole world is shattering, so... there's a lot going on here. Old Green Knees said, once the raid fails and VV Sabo, SSG, Smokers show up, how do you see the matchups? Also, Morj, I'm not Keenan from your streams. I'm a different Keenan.
Oh, different Keenan? Keenan from my streams is my favorite person to see in streams, but leave it at
that. The matchups...
Oh, we hit 400 quick. All right.
Oh, the Morj's, you know, his word is bond. Look at that. What he says goes. You got the people in the palm of your hands, man. Look at that. Putty.
I think they just want another collab at some point.
Yeah. No, that's cool. No, this has been a lot of fun, man. I mean, it's always fun to talk about One Piece. I know you got to work. Let's see. Ramon Avila said, great collab. Love this Morj. You read that one earlier. It's not getting salty, even though he said thanks for your content. Okay. We got Barry Motivated, who said, I feel like there will be several reasons why Luffy should end up fulfilling his prophecy, but it will be something super and deeply personal that will actually trigger him to do it. I mean, that's the only way to make it compelling for all of us.
Yeah.
So. And let's see. Nick Can't Snipe Spitting here said, let's be real, Chuji is joining. And I can do nothing but agree. We're getting Chuji, we're getting Boombuku, right? I mean, Morj knows all about Thomas Teapot.
I don't remember. I don't recall.
He said, what do you think Shiryu can offer in a fight? Shouldn't observation negate the clear fruit?
Once you get into Awakening, you can kind of do away with that, right? In theory.
I mean, if we eventually get some sort of like Hunter x Hunter, like Zetsu sort of thing, where you can kind of suppress your energy, that's the only thing that makes it that work for me.
Yeah. Otherwise, because then even if you set Shiryu aside, you've got other characters who use invisibility, right? Queen's not relevant anymore, but like in theory, right? Like
if Frankie raids Queen's, workshop, like I see that's definitely a possibility, right? Because all of the Straw Hats have been getting upgrades in this arc, similar to what we got in Eni's Lobby. That's definitely one of the things that are going there. Zoro's got Advanced Conquerors now. Luffy's got Advanced Conquerors. Robin broke out the Demonio Floor. Chopper can be a monster point for 30 minutes. There's just Sanji, Afri Jambe, but we haven't seen anything for Frankie, but it was implied by Sanji, Frankie would love those rechargeable lasers. So I feel like that's something that's got to happen. And then Usopp still needs a big moment. Nami has Zeus is a homie now.
Nami got a nice one. She got a nice.
Oh, she got a big upgrade. Me personally, I love the theory that Kanjuro's fruit goes to Usopp or his Kabuto.
I think once you put that theory out, like a lot of people were talking about it, so people mentioned Randy saying this about Usopp. That's an interesting. I didn't like that idea initially, just because, and I probably still won't, just because I prefer the idea of Usopp not having necessarily like a really good ability on his hands. I prefer the idea of him remaining an underdog, but I could see like it fits his skill set beautifully, obviously, if he were to be handed it.
Oh, hold on. Gotta shout out my boy here. Ty said, "Sorry I'm late, Captain. Did I miss if Mr. Morj described how his raid ending and failure theory has evolved? What do y'all think of a special mini reverie welcoming Murphy Napier into the blissfully painful world of being a weekly reader?"
I don't think we need a mini reverie because we should be getting one. I haven't been up to date with the group chats, but we've been talking about, last I saw, we're talking about the next one. And I don't want to spill any data, but we're already talking about a new full reverie.
There's no date set, but it was basically like, do we wait until there's like an act break? Like, when do we do it? That's kind of what the conversation was going for. But Murphy has kind of taken the One Piece community by storm, so I think it would be remiss if we didn't try to get her involved as well.
I'm sure we'll definitely get her for the next one, right? Like, next reverie should be soon, so it's not like a far ways off.
Yeah, definitely. Got the boy Triple Threevil Evil in here.
Evil's here.
Yeah. Lagoon Out said, "Have you checked out the Yuderon amber oil theory? Thoughts?" This oil thing with Luffy's fruit, I'm not the biggest fan because it doesn't add anything to the story.
Have you seen the theory? Because I haven't seen the theory. I don't like talking negatively about theories that I haven't seen, but all of my instincts basically tell me I don't like that idea.
When I did the collab with Ragnar for the first theory for theory, he wanted to talk about it because the first thing had come on. I know that Yuderon has been adding onto it and all of that. I haven't seen any of the add-ons, but I watched the initial thing. The only thing I liked about the theory is that it would give, a clever reason for why Luffy's attacks, are named gear or weapons and stuff if it's like fruit was oil. But the only thing about that is that, okay, so it's all coming from the perspective of Luffy's fruit being the fruit that the Gorosei are talking about, that they're worried about. Now, I believe that that's probably the case because it only makes sense. We are reading a Chosen One story, whether we like it or not, and it's been that way since, we found out about Dragon and Garp and all of this stuff. But this idea of it being oil adds literally nothing to the story, whereas, like, it would be devastating if Luffy's awakening was that he had the ability to change the size or the properties of something, right? Then suddenly, like, Zunisha could be something that was a baby elephant that was, like, grown due to whatever the real name of this, Gomu Gomu no Mi was, if it can alter the size. Because I've always had it in my head, even going back to, reading Eni's Lobby, that, like, Luffy's final form would be that he would, like, turn himself into a giant, that he would figure out a way to not just isolate one gigantic fist, but to turn his whole body into a giant. So if that's something, it seems like something that would be worrisome to the Gorosei, not oil. You know, this isn't the real world where oil means something.
And he'll control all the resources.
He'll be more wealthy than us. Exactly. Yeah.
I'll give it a watch just to see, because I mean, right there you mentioned a couple things like the weapon aspect. Okay, but I guess I'll watch it just to get the gist of it. But it for me, it just goes against too many. It goes against the essence of what we. The gum fruit just feels like so. It would be like finding out in my mind like Luffy's straw hat is actually like a I don't know, like a baseball cap or something. You know what I mean? Like it's so fundamental to the character, right? Even just the Gomu. Does that name change then? I don't know what oil.
I mean, I imagine it would have to. But I mean, like if you have the ability to, if you're the one writing the history book, you can make it say whatever you want it to say.
Yeah.
So it's just that's the whole thing. One thing that I do that I think adds to the fact that they could be talking about the Gomu Gomu no Mi is just the timeline of everything, right? Because I think that a lot of fruits that the government was holding on to, I think they escaped during Fisher Tiger's like raid on Marijoa, because it's in the year and the year after that happened that Luffy eats his fruit, that Law eats his fruit, and both of these fruits are like very important to the government. I think that Law's fruit is the key to probably the Gorosei or Emu being super old and is around since the Void Century, at least Emu, maybe not the Gorosei, but there's that. But Tai, we did talk about the raid at the beginning of the stream very briefly. Not going to spend too much longer on that, but you catch the VOD, my man. I appreciate you. And,
I think I do have to go if we want to hit like one more thing or something like that. But this was honestly a really fun time. I haven't had that much fun talking One Piece lately, to be honest, in collabs, but I really enjoyed this. So
that's cool, man.
Do we want to hit one more, a quick one, something really short?
Let's see. I mean, I don't pre-read them, but it's from 0000. Garp refusing promotion to help Sword is fine, but Kuzan not only became an admiral, he went on to fight for Fleet Admiral. I think it makes more sense for Kuzan to be separate and Sengoku leading Sword. So, in my initial video talking about Sword, I was basically coming from the perspective of Sengoku not being aware of it until maybe post-time skip or anything like that. But there's also an element, obviously, because you have the whole thing with Corazon being a secret agent as well. There's also this scene in Marineford that hits a lot harder and hits way different when Sengoku is putting Garp's face into the dirt and saying, hey, don't fight Sakazuki right now. Like, don't do this. And coming from the context of don't ruin everything we're trying to do. Then, if Sengoku is a part of this whole coup within to take down Emu, to take down the world government, then, Sengoku and Garp being the co-leaders makes sense. They were both working, together, but I still feel like Garp needs this to make his character interesting. He needs this for us to be able to, I know you just did a big Marineford analysis, but, to be able to go back and talk about Garp from the angle of putting duty above family. Like, he didn't want Ace to die, but it's like, what I'm trying to do, Ace, is actually bigger than you, and I'm sorry. I'm trying to save the world. Like, that's the kind of, that's what I want out of the characters in One Piece. What stakes?
I definitely agree. I'll just add my 2 cents, just that I think that Sengoku and Law's conversation works at the end of Dressrosa, it works better if Sengoku, they're not in on this, if Sengoku's not a member of Sword, Law's not a member of, if Sengoku and Law are not both members of Sword, because I like the idea better that Sengoku is genuinely letting Law go in memory of Corazon, right? Because that's somebody that both sides, even though they fall on opposite sides of the line, on both sides they have they share this sort of they have this shared bond to this character that they both understand each other, and Sengoku, it's coming more from a personal place rather than, them both of them being in cahoots in a way. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And one last thing, I can't find the chat, but I know Evil Warrior, one of my members, put something saying, Morj, if there is a video that you think is, or a theory that you think of yours is underrated, that you think that people should check out, what do you think everybody should go find?
Oh shoot, that's nice. I'm trying to think. Dude, there's one. I mean, a video that I like pushing people towards is a video that I have called like why Oda is underrated, and which is funny because like I don't think Oda is underrated by most people, but I also think that there's
certainly not anybody in the community.
Not anybody in the community, but there's it talks a lot about how he does side characters, and I think that goes unappreciated a little bit by some people. So yeah, and I think that's my best video personally.
Certainly better than Toriyama ever did with side characters.
You're talking about how Puar is no longer
relevant.
Really important?
Well, I was a big Yamcha and Tien fan, so Dragon Ball Z didn't sit right with me.
That's brutal. I like Dragon Ball better than Dragon Ball Z, but like, yeah, it's just like Dragon Ball. I don't know. It feels more One Piece-y, honestly. Like Dragon Ball, the adventure aspect. But I get it. It's two separate things. Yeah. A theory that I guess pointing people towards would be, I don't know. If I look through my stuff, I think I'd have one. You know what? I think I have a set of 3 videos which talks about how I think the end games of all of the Straw Hats play out. Certain aspects like how, where Frankie goes with Pluton, things like that, where Usopp's character goes. I think that those are interesting in my opinion. I'd recommend checking those out. But besides
one of the most interesting theories that I think I saw from you a long time ago was your theory on Uranus being the hat. I remember watching that and going, like I don't know if I'm 100% on board. I think they're all people in conduits, but I did like that idea of it changing its composition to match, like a crystal ball, something like that.
I personally still believe that, but I'm now also we've just gotten certain things in Wano that make me very open to the idea that Uranus is something Momonosuke related or something even Zanisha related or something like that. But yeah, my immediate guess is still basically the hat. So we'll see. I'd be happy if it's something Momonosuke related as well. But
all right, guys. Morj has to get out of here. He's got to go back to work. But so let's thank him in the chat for being here. All right, his link to his channel, if you don't know who he is below, and we'll continue the conversation between all of us after Mr. Morj leaves. But let's thank him and thank you for joining me for Theory, man. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, thanks, man. I definitely enjoyed it. Guys, get the stream to 500 likes and enjoy the rest of your stream. All right, see you, man.
Later, man. How was that, guys? Did we enjoy Theory this break week? That Mr. Morj was, the top choice for a collab for Theory. I definitely had a lot of fun, and if you came from Morj, but you enjoyed my thoughts, you can subscribe as well.
I've been swimming deep, savage.